everybody, this is Zoe from No Safer Place, and today I am here reviewing a book that I just got and I simply couldn't put it down. It's not often that I read a book and then I have tons of thoughts afterwards and I want to share it with you straight away, especially when it's a non-fiction book. If you've been following my channel for a while, you will know that I'm not a particular lover of non-fiction, but this book I just had to buy and I'm so pleased I did. So today I'm here with a review of Sidesplitter by Wang. Now, you may not know this, but I am absolutely in love with Wang. I can't remember the first time I saw him, but it was on some kind of comedy show. I'll be honest, I really struggle with comedy. I don't find many people funny. I love John Richardson and I love Wang. They are my two favourites. And ever since I saw him on this particular show, I kind of watched everything that he's done and I just absolutely love him. So when I saw that he had a book coming out, and I just thought, wow, two of my favourite things, Wang and reading. I bought it, the signed edition obviously. And you may see that I have post-it notes here because I just had to mark some of my favourite quotes. I will be reading them a little bit later on in the review. And I realised that I have just been absolutely rambling for these first few minutes and not actually said much about the book. So, review time. As I said, I don't often read non-fiction books, much less autobiographical type books. I mean, is this an autobiography? I think so. He specifically says that it is not a memoir. Says that a lot, but it is kind of a memoir, I guess. Knowing the kind of comedy that Wang does, I was kind of expecting it to be really light-hearted and comedic and just full of funniness. And don't get me wrong, it was all of those things. But it also has a lot of seriousness in it. It talks about a lot of important issues in depth, such as the sense of belonging and race. And yeah, although it tackles so many important things, parts of it still manage to be light-hearted and comedic, which I think is a really tough skill to master. So the book is set into 10 chapters, which are easy to dip in and out of if that's your kind of thing. Although I am not a psychopath and I read my books in the order that they were written. But if that's you and you like to read books out of order, it is really easy to choose which chapter you want to read and just go backwards and forwards. The sections are, I had to write these down because I cannot remember 10 chapter names. Family, words, food, race, comedy, love, history, assimilation, nature and home. Now, I've got something to admit, and something that I only learned about myself when reading this book. It opened my eyes to the fact that I am actually quite ignorant and quite naive without even really knowing that I am. Living in Britain as someone who isn't white enough to be white, or living in Asia and not looking Asian enough to be Asian, is obviously something I haven't experienced. And something I will admit honestly that I've not really thought of. And I think the fact that I've not thought about that shows how privileged I am as a white female. Not having to worry about those things and worry that I don't fit in is a privilege that I didn't realise that I had until reading this book, and realise some of the struggles that people who come from two different countries have to deal with on a daily basis. Also, another thing that I learned about myself from this book, and that I'm quite ashamed of, is that when I think of the word racism and racists, in my head I automatically think of white people targeting black people. Obviously I know racism exists outside of those two races, but in my head that is what I think when I think of racism. And again, ashamed to admit that. And don't get me wrong, I went to Black Lives Matter protests. I was very outspoken, but I've never really thought about the quiet racism that exists around Asian people. The racism that they experience and stereotypes that they experience are things like, oh, all Asian people are smart, which obviously can be seen as a positive thing, but we can't just label everyone from one race with the same brushstroke. So he talks about all Asian people being smart, all Asian people looking the same. Even things like calling your local Chinese takeaway, I'm not going to say the word, it's probably a word that you're familiar with, and it's actually a word that I have pulled my family and friends over a few times for saying, because it is quite frankly racist, and he explores all of these themes in the book, and I think it's so important. I think this book kind of makes you think, okay, so this is quiet racism, but it is still racism and something we need to be tackling. He also talks about Asian men being seen as less desirable. And let me say, I have heard people say that. I obviously haven't said it myself, but I've heard people say that. And let me tell you, it is wrong. Because I flippin' fancy Phil Wang, let me tell you. I was reading the book and he refers to the fact that Asian people aren't referred to as fit very often by British people, but you know, I think Phil Wang is fit. Even though I haven't said the word fit since possibly the early 2000s. But yeah, that's a book reference. I don't usually go calling people fit. I feel like that's a very outdated word. He talks about topics like cultural appropriation, the loss of belonging when you're from two different countries and have experienced living in two different countries. And then there's also a lot more light-hearted stuff like Malaysian food. Some sentences about this food is just like food porn. I have never really thought about Malaysian food, and now all I want in life is Malaysian food. I don't know if they have gluten-free Malaysian food. I really hope so, because it's something that I need to try. The book just really surprised me in the most fantastic way. I didn't go into it expecting to learn things, and I did, which I love when reading a book. As I said earlier, I've got some excerpts. I chose some serious ones and some not so serious ones. I've chosen 3. I hopefully will include all 3 depending how long I babble on for. Let's get reading. The first one is on page 85. Please, see race, see colour. It's okay. You're allowed to notice that I look Chinese. What matters is what you do with that information. Want to ask me which noodle dish I recommend on the menu? Go for it. That's why I'm here in the restaurant offering advice from table to table to as many people as I can before the management kicks me out again. But want to drop kick me in the chest because you think Chinese people all got together and created COVID in a big wok? Maybe hold off on that impulse. Living well in a racially diverse world is not about sticking your head in the sand and pretending that race does not exist. It is about acknowledging race whilst exercising care and judgment. I just think some of these quotes are so important, and do you see what I mean from that excerpt there? How he takes really serious things and he does make a joke about it, but it still manages to be somehow serious as well. Very clever. The next one is a funny one, and something that I laughed at for a really long time. The description is just... So, without further ado, let's talk about Phil Wang's penis. I know you're wondering, so I'm just going to tell you. My penis is fantastic, alright? Correct, it is sturdy, effective and rather handsome. When flaccid, it packs away neatly into a very manageable nub, about the size of a fat garden slug, exactly flush with my testicles so that the entire package resembles a single small gourd. I then don't have to think about it and can get on with my day. My penis is an ingenious piece of practical design, perfect for the busy travelling man. Don't believe the bad PR, my penis is like Mary Poppins, extremely good at packing things into apparently small places, and practically perfect in every way, with or without its hat on. I cannot tell you how much I laughed at that description. The book is just full of hilarious things like that, and I don't think I've ever laughed as much at a book as I did this one. The last quote that I chose is about cultural appropriation. And again, this is something I've thought of more recently in previous years as I've got older and more mature, and I just thought this summed it up really well. If you're a white person and are about to have a Mexican themed dinner party, or you're wondering how experimental to be with your hair at Notting Hill Carnival, just think, don't be rude. It doesn't mean you can't do what you want to do. What you want to do may very well not be rude. It may be a delicious plate of tacos or a killer hairdo. Just ask yourself before you do anything you're worried might be condemned as cultural appropriation. Is this rude? If the answer is an honest and considered no, then tuck in, enjoy. We mustn't punish curiosity, and we mustn't punish our fascination with one another, with each other's customs, clothes and cooking. Appropriate. Just make sure to appropriate well. Give it thought. Be respectful. Appropriate, appreciate, assimilate, and be a part of the culture of the world. I feel like that quote sums this book up perfectly. And honestly, it's just an absolute joy. That is all I can describe this book as, just absolutely delightful and insightful. I laughed, I cried, and most importantly, I learned. Lots of new things actually, and as I said, it gave me so much to think about after. And I hope from this book that I grow, and I've also learned a lot of new things about my favourite comedian. And got a hell of a lot of laughs, so it was just a win-win really. I just love books that leave you contemplating life for hours afterwards. I think they're really important. I would highly, highly recommend this book, whether you're a Phil Wang fan or not. If you're not, you definitely will be by the end of the book. And yeah, today is actually release day as I'm recording this. It will probably go live the day after release day, so Friday. But today is Malaysia Day. And Phil is actually both Chinese, Malaysian and British. You will notice there, if you're watching this, Phil, that I said both Chinese, Malaysian and British rather than half Chinese, Malaysian and half British. I'm trying to learn. So yeah, if you've read this book, please let me know. I would love to know your thoughts on it. Let's get chatting. I would love to talk about this. There are many important discussions to be had. And just if you want something that will make you cry, laugh, that's the book for you. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, comment, subscribe, all that usual good stuff. Also, you can turn on the notification bell to be notified when I upload new videos, which I don't have a schedule anymore, but it should be at least once a week. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you would like to see more of on my channel, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye.